The next thing we want to model is some kind of dead pine tree without the leaves, and it's just to add variation and some visual interest to the scene. We'll use a different approach than with the pine tree, because there we would use some basic primitive geometry to shape the object, and here we will actually create the geometry from the scratch. So let's add a new object, press Shift A and add a plane, and tab into the edit mode, and with all the vertices selected, we will merge them so the object actually will contain only one vertex. So press Alt M and click at center. And this is the same thing we did with the top of the pine tree before. So you just merge the vertices in the middle of the plane. And now we want to go to the side view. So press number 1 on the numpad, or you could click the Y icon here. And let's move this a little bit with the Shift middle mouse button. And we want to extrude some geometry, and extrusion works not only for faces, but it works with edges and vertices too. So you can create a new geometry with extrude tool. So let's press E, and you can see right away we are extruding the second vertex, and there is a edge in between them. Let's press Z to drag it on the Z axis and go all the way up. We can go the same height as the pine tree before, and it was, I think, 4 meters. So let's hold Control, we can snap this and click here. Okay, now we have 2 vertices and a new edge, and same as the faces, the edges can be sliced too with the cut tool, with the Control R. So let's do that right now, because we want some new vertices to extrude branches from them. So let's press Control R, and you can see this little dot that appears when you hover over, and that's the same as the yellow loop cut that appear when you hover over the face. So let's move the mouse wheel to increase the count, and right now we are at 7, and I want 2 more, so we have 9 cuts here, and just click to confirm. Only difference between cutting the faces and edge is that after confirming the number of cuts, you don't have the ability to slide them around. Now the rest of the modeling will be a little bit tricky, so I want you to pay attention of what I'm selecting and what I'm actually doing here very carefully. So let's drag the selection around these 3 vertices, and that's 1 at the top, and then the other 3 beneath it. And let's press S and Z to scale on the Z axis, but let's disable the proportional editing. That's what I was talking about when I said that's a good practice to disable it always. So let's press S and Z to scale, and scale them really close together, and then repeat for the other groups of the vertices. So select the other 3, press S, Z, and scale them down, and the bottom ones too. So S, Z, and scale them down. So we have a bottom vertex, top vertex, and then these clusters of vertices in the middle. And right now we'll extrude the branches, but to make it easy, we will do it all at once, or rather we will do it in groups. So to select first group, we'll start with the bottom vertices. So select the bottom one from this cluster, hold Shift and click this one at the bottom and this one at the bottom. So you have all 3 bottom vertices selected. And now we'll go to the top view, and that's number 7 on the numpad, or you can click the Z here. So let's press number 7. And now we will press E, and you can see we are extruding. And since we selected 3 of them, we are extruding all 3 at once. Drag it all the way up around here, and then do that again. It doesn't have to be precise. These will be branches, remember, and we will modify them later. Okay, and now press numpad 1 to go back to the front view, and you can see we have extruded all of these. And now we will repeat this process for the rest. So let's click the middle one here, hold shift and select middle one here as well, and here. Press numpad 7 to go to the top view and extrude it to other direction. Basically we want to have some kind of star shape. Okay, and now press 1 again on the numpad, click the top one, hold shift and select this as well, and again back to the top view with numpad 7, extrude here, click, and then extrude again. Now we can use the middle mouse button to rotate to perspective. Now the only thing, we just have to scale this a little bit to actually create the pine tree shape. So let's click this one here, and by holding shift select these vertices which are part of the top branches, and press S and just scale them down. And then repeat with the middle branches, click this one, hold shift and select these and scale them down. Now we'll add some randomness to the tree, so select the outer vertices on the branches, so just these on the edges, but for every branch. And we'll enable proportional editing by pressing O. Press G for grab, Z on Z-axis, and we will drag them out. And again, you can modify the fall off here, and we want to drag them up a little bit. Okay, and right away I can see here that I want to scale this out a little bit. And now I want to switch from smooth fall off to random. So let's look at here. Here's the little icon, and when you click that, you can see there are different modes for the proportional editing, and one of them is random. So if you click random, and then we select these edge vertices again, and click G and Z, and make the fall off really big. You can see how disproportionately the other vertices moves. That's because the fall off is more random, and what you want to do is just to increase the fall off and move them a little bit, and then click OK, so you have some nice variation. And what we can do next is actually rotate some of those. So we can select these vertices, and again I'm just holding shift and clicking the left mouse button, and let's disable proportional editing with O. And now I want you to switch the pivot point from median to 3D cursor. And as I said from the previous episode, the 3D cursor is this circle right here, and right now it's at 0, 0, 0 point. So it's in the middle of the scene, and actually right now in the middle of the tree as well when it comes to X and Y axis. And we'll use that to rotate around this axis. So if we go to the top view and press 7, And now with these selected, just press R and rotate them a little bit. You can see they are rotating exactly around the cursor. Okay, now go to the perspective view with the middle mouse button, and we can select the bottom ones. Here, go to the top view, press R to rotate, and rotate these a little bit. So we have a little bit nicer distribution of the branches, and we can of course rotate them even here when you press Z to limit that to the Z axis, or we can maybe do some manual adjustments, so just click some vertices and grab them around as you see fit. Remember, this is a creative process, and the steps I shown you is just to make things easier for you and to create the general shape. And again, this is a creative process, so you should shape your tree the way you want it to look. So let's go back to the smooth here and maybe do a little adjustment. And here this is too much, so I will disable that and move it back in place. Okay, and this is the base for our dead tree. Now we'll talk about modifiers a little bit. You know about modifiers from the first episode where we used the array modifier. So let's click here at the modifier tab on the right, and let's add the skin modifier. But don't get scared, it'll get a little bit messy at start. So add a skin modifier. And now what it does is just simply takes the vertex and edge information you have there and wraps them around with geometry. So this is very useful modifier, and it's one of my favorite because there are lots of things you can do with this if you know how to do. So let's tap into the edit mode and hold Z to switch to the wireframe mode here. And if we select all by pressing A, there is something called vertex radius on the object data, and it doesn't have to do anything with scale. It's just some data that the vertex have, and if you press N to open this menu and click here at item, you can see under the vertices data there is a radius X and Y value, and this is just some data that some of the modifiers, like the skin modifier, can take into the account to actually create some geometry for you. And you can control this radius. Of course, you can control this here, but there's a better way because you would have to adjust X and Y separately. But if you want to do it at once, you can press Ctrl A. And this is not very intuitive keyboard shortcut, but remember that it's very useful. It's Ctrl A. Then you can adjust the radius of the vertices and actually affect the skin modifier. And right now this is not ready by far, but there is a good way how to make the radius of the vertices go smoothly to lower values. And if you're guessing we will use proportional editing, you are right, because it affects this kind of radius as well. So right now we'll just select the edge vertices here, like before, by holding Shift, select the end vertices on the branches, enable proportional editing with O, press Ctrl A to change the radius and bring it down. And now if you use the mouse wheel, you can see how you can affect the radius on the other vertices as well. So yeah, this is a very handy way how to actually do this kind of geometry, and I use it on the trees all the time basically. Let me just adjust this because I don't like how this branch looks. Okay, and you can of course adjust some of those separately with proportional editing turned off and make some single adjustments here and there, so you get the desired results. Maybe here we can do it a little bit wider because it's the trunk of the tree, and here at bottom much wider. So just left click the vertex, press Ctrl A and drag. And now if we switch to the solid view, this is your dead tree. There is one other modifier that can be useful here, and that's decimate modifier, and this is modifier that's very broadly used in low poly graphics. So let's click here, add modifier, and let's find the decimate modifier right here under the generate. Click it and nothing happens because we didn't modify the value of the modifier. So here under the decimate modifier, where the ratio is, you can drag this down to reduce the geometry on the object. And this is very useful because when you look closely, some of these parts have too much geometry and it can get a little bit messy. So when you reduce the number of geometry by adjusting ratio, you are actually creating sometimes much more interesting parts of the tree. And yes, you are creating triangles basically, but it looks good in the end. So I like to use this on the trees as well when I'm finished with the skin modifier. And of course you can go and again make some small adjustments, because I have a feeling that right here I made these vertices for the branches too close together, and it's making the mesh a little bit distorted. So let's just clean it up a little bit. Yeah, looking much better already. Okay. Now just select the object. Let's name it that tree. Hide it here and don't forget to save your project again.